Right, okay guys, so welcome to the Derby Racer. This ride opened in 1959, someone's done the homework. Okay, so it opened in 1959. Other carousel type rides in UK and Europe, they tend to go clockwise. This is an American brand, so you go to anti-clockwise. This is one of only 3 of these rides in the entire world left. So there's this one here at Pleasure Beach, there is one in Cedar Point, and there's also one in New York. Anyone want to take a guess how many horses we've got? 56. We do have 56, which means we can have 112 riders at any one time. We do have some more horses around the outside. Does anybody know where those horses have come from? They are the original steeplechase horses, correct? Point. So yeah, the original horses off the steeplechase, obviously now they've been refabricated to the ones that they are now. We didn't want to get rid of these ones, so that they're just for show, a little homage to the steeplechase. I take it you've all ridden this ride? Yeah? Anyone want to guess how fast it goes?
It's got faster this season.
Do you think it's faster, yeah?
Yeah.
It's definitely faster on the outside than what it is on the inside. Anyone want to take a guess?
What miles per hour?
25.
25, spot on. Somebody knows the Derby Racer very well.
Alright, okay, so we're going to go under here, just watch the step when we go through here. Alright guys, so you'll just move up just a little tiny bit. Alright, so we're under the Sahara Maxim captive flying machine. And the ride's just coming to an end now. We'll start it up again in a minute for you can see how it's running. How the ride works is that we have 2 electric motors down at that end, and they're driving these these cogs here, which are driving these wheels. But basically, the ropes then turn this massive, beautiful piece of Victorian engineering. Never been built like that these days. And then which is turning that very important cog there, which is on the large cog that you can see on the central column, which is ultimately what's turning the ride and making it rotate. The ride itself opened in 1904. We believe it's the oldest or longest continuously running ride in Europe. The inventor of it, who gives his name to it, is Sahara Maxim. Now, Sahara Maxim is a really interesting guy. If you've got a spare 10 minutes, Google him, and you'll find out he's a really interesting life. He's technically an American, although he's got a knighthood. And he got his knighthood because and we don't normally tell people stuff about him in this way, but because he was an arms guy and he invented the first mobile machine gun. You've got to remember when the time period that this was in, and he was using this business of fairground rides to basically fund the development of his arms business. He also invented the mouse trap as well, so he's not all bad unless you're a mouse. And so yeah, interesting guy. The first one of these was at Earls Court in London. Earls Court's kind of when they have one of those big exhibitions. It's quite interesting because it's also the genesis of a couple of our older rides, and here as well, which you'll hear a little bit more about as we go on. Anyway, when you look over the edge here, now I'm not promising you nice fluffy sand, but there is sand that you can see because Pleasure Beach gets its name ultimately from being on the beach, and we were literally built on the beach. This is all reclaimed beach land. There's a few sites around the park where you can see original sand like this. is hidden in the motor car, but here is one of them. Underneath the Nickelodeon Street station, which we use when you can take a train off and move it over. All of it under there is all sand as well, literally you can make a sandcastle under there. And then if you've ever been on the Big Dipper, you'll know the head chopper moment, and all of that section is sand as well. So some little calls back to the original beach the car's on. Everyone's being very polite. If anyone wants a photo, just say and I'll take it for you. Oh, there you go. That one's a good one. So we are down by the ghost train. We're very proud of our ghost train. We make the claim that this is the original ghost train. Some of you will have heard all of this if you've done the walking through. We did a tour actually walking through the entire ride. We're not going to do that now, but we are going to do something a bit different behind it in a second. But the story of the ghost train is that it was originally called the pretzel ride, which is a very common ride in America during this period. So this is in the 20s and 30s. Rides lived or died by people riding rides. There were a lot of concessions running rides on here at that time, and if people weren't interested, it wasn't taking any money, something had to be done about it. And there was a play and a film, although the film is more of an influence than the play, called The Ghost Train, that was out at this time. And someone, depending on who you ask, although I'm saying it's one of the Thompson family, came up with the idea of putting spooky things around in the darkened rooms, and that was the genesis for the ghost train. And when they did that, it was an instant hit. Joseph Emberton, who's a famous architect in Pleasure Beach history, has had an influence on a number of our buildings, and the design of the ghost train as the second layer was one of those. He also did the casino building, did the fun house, he did the original PB Express station that had that beautiful sort of modernist look. So you can usually spot an Emberton's building. In fact, our guest services building is called Emberton's after him. So we're going to go and explore some of those tunnels now. The floor is not flat. They are dark. There is overhead hazards, so take care. But if you follow me, we'll go and have a look. If you'll move up a little bit so everyone can get through. There you go. Okay, so we're inside the river caves. Remember that I said that Coney Island had an influence and so on. This is another ride where there's some of that influence, and also Earl's Court. So I was talking about the flying machines being at Earl's Court, but the first one of these in the UK was actually at Earl's Court as well, and because of the success of that, it was run by a company called the London Company that had these rides originally. The name is very misleading because they were actually based in Coney Island, so it all leads back to Coney Island again. But this type of ride is typical of early amusement parks, and it's called an old mill or mill chute ride, or like ours, River Caves or River Caves of the World. And another name, common name for them, is Tunnel of Love. So the Tunnel of Love thing that we've got going on here, which actually came from the filming of an episode of Coronation Street when they added the Tunnel of Love sign, and then we just never took it away, and it's become part of the ride. But Tunnel of Love is the name, one of the names that could be attributed to this style of ride, which you'll find in lots of classic old amusement parks all over the world. There's a really good example at a park called Kennywood in Pittsburgh. Kennywood's a great little park in that it's like if you picked Pleasure Beach up and put it in Pittsburgh, America, and there's lots of similarities between the two, but one of the similarities is they've got a dark water ride like this, which is a mill chute ride. Yeah. So we did have a leak in the ride, but that was only one aspect. Also, we have been re-evaluating our rides and deciding when we need to do things like the process we went through with Valhalla. We are running some rides, so I did hear the big difficulty. Now, ordinarily, when we're open at weekends, then we will run all the rides. Operationally, we'll run all the rides on a Friday, and we do that throughout the day on Friday to make sure that everything's ready. So when on Saturday, you don't want to. There we go. Okay, so we're in the Icon station, obviously. Does anyone remember what was here prior to Icon being here? Used to have a massive bridge going down the park, called Tom Sawyer's Bridge. And then
Turtle Chase?
Yeah, that's further over, but you know, the hump where it was situated, where it is now, there's
Log Flume.
The log flume was where Fusion is now.
That's right. Yeah.
But the grassy bit with the red totem poles on it, that's where the Turtle Chase was. So we had a big boating lake, a big bridge. We had a ride called the Spin Doctor, which was 2 arms with 4 seats on the end of each arm that span round either side of the bridge. Yeah. And I remember I talked about capacity on how good it was on the flying machines. You could get 80 people on. The Spin Doctor obviously didn't have a very good capacity. So what they did, when you're looking for a new ride, they knew that they wanted a launch coaster. And what that does is it kind of gives you a direction, because there isn't actually that many manufacturers in the world, and then when you narrow it down to suddenly, oh, I want a launch coaster, it narrows it down again to the manufacturers who are able to produce those. They did a computer scan of South Park. We're on South Park now. The park is split into North Park, South Park and Nickelodeon Land. It runs operationally like that as well. The dividing line between North and South is Watson Road. And we had obviously this lake and so on, and they computer scanned the whole of South Park down to the millimetre, and in doing that was able to, we were able to identify what area we could use to put a coaster in. One of the bonuses of that was that they discovered that the existing gap in the big one structure was big enough that you could get a track twice, a train, people riding the train with the safety envelope with their hands in the air to pass through that. And as soon as they realised that, it meant that you could have a much longer ride. So it opened up all the area down by the steeplechase and so on. And then what happens is you go out to those manufacturers and you give them that plot of land and many constraints that you have. Although what's interesting about Pleasure Beach is one of the only places in the UK where we don't need planning permission for anything that's within the boundaries of our site. So if we wanted to build a 500-foot coaster, then we could, on the basis as long as we've got agreement because of the airport nearby. So that's an interesting little fact. But anyway, so those companies will then produce a computer mock-up of what they propose, very similar to if you've ever played a game called No Limits, where you can build roller coasters. So it's a bit like a complicated version of that, and at that stage it's really great because you can make changes and make suggestions and so on. And so, for example, Nick Thompson was really keen to make sure that we had the interaction at the end of the ride between the Big Dipper and this ride. So that's why that curve goes over the top of the Big Dipper. And it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, when you get a train on the Big Dipper go under and the Icon train go over, you get the illusion for the riders that you can slap hands with riders on. And it is an illusion with riders on the other train. He was very keen to have that element. The bit where you're stood now on one of the designs actually had a massive top hat going up over, and even the top hat that we've got today got moved slightly in the design to make sure that there was enough clearance on the return chain on the big one. There was a problem for a little bit because that then restricted the length of the first launch. So you end up working through all of these issues to get to a design that you like. And then a lot of it comes down to relationships, and we've got a good relationship with Mac, the manufacturer of this ride. They built they built Avalanche in 1980s. And they also built the SpongeBob ride on Nickelodeon Land. That was actually the first one of that style of water teacup ride that they had done. So we had a history with them, and there's similarities. They are a family business. We're a family business. They own a park. We own a park. There was all of that, but then the clincher was the seats. But so it comes down to what you might think are silly things. But Amanda was really keen that the ride was comfortable for people and that the chairs felt good and the restraints felt good. And that ended up being one of the key factors why we went with Matt, because they sat in the train at Europa Park, loved it and wanted it here. So if you follow me. See what I mean? So all of you that just crossed your arms as you went across, we'll see you all on Saturday to start your shift at 10 o'clock. The bit that you're stood on now all moves, all of it. So, and that's because when we add and take off a train storage is through there, which we're going to go and look at in a minute. But it's really easy to get trains on and off on this coaster because all of this, the storage, the platform, the track, the train, all slides over to get in line with the storage bays behind it. It's all done. Touch of a button, really efficient, really quick. And I can make a comparison because on the big one, it's all vertically stacked, not horizontal. There we've got 3 tracks, the running track that you see in the station, we've got a maintenance track below, and below that we've got what's called the pit, so we can actually store 3 trains, and we do still have 3 trains for the big one. We can store them 3 like that. And then if we wanted to bring one of the trains from the pit up onto the running track, the whole thing has to lift up. So that's why on the big one, the station is tall and thin, so it's got a small footprint, but then has the room above to be able to introduce another train. But everything on there is hanging off massive cables. So you can imagine putting a train on there is really complicated. So we're really pleased when we got this because it's really straightforward instead. Although you may notice us do where we fire out the trains and they don't make the first element and roll back, especially if you're here in the morning or if we add a train later in the day. And the reason that we do that is to warm the wheels up. The ride doesn't like it until it's above 5 degrees. It's fine once it's running, but in the morning we like it to be 5 or above. And we do that, what we call underspeeds, to get the wheels moving so that when we do a normal launch, any train that goes over the top hat element should always make it into launch 2. Should. in the operative world. We've proved a couple of times that that doesn't always happen, which is why we've got that procedure in place. All right. And then there's another thing that they can do which you can't ride on, which is called an overspeed, which is probably the most thrilling ride that you can have on Icon, but unfortunately you'll never get to do that. But anyway, okay, so we're going to cut through into the maintenance bay. Be very careful of this drop on the right hand side as we go through here. Obviously in the maintenance place, you can see when that slides across, as I said, it will line up the front of either of these two tracks where we can stop. We've got 3 trains, well at the moment we've got 2 trains and thought, oh it's come on a bit actually, we're in about a third of the Enzo train, which will be back a little bit later this year. In here the train aren't sat on track, they're actually sat on casters which are in this part of the train chassis. And that's to expose the wheel assembly. So when we go underneath, you'll see that the engineers have full access to the wheel assembly, can change a wheel and inspect it properly and so on. And so the weight is actually of the train is actually on that, not on track. And that's why there's that funny piece of shaped track at the front. You can also see we had the backs of these open before. So this is a really safe ride, and what I mean by that is it has a double redundancy in it. So if you can imagine you're on the Big Dipper, the big one, you've got a primary restraint, which is the lap bar, and then you've got a secondary restraint, which is the seat belt, although you can undo the seat belt like you could in a car. On this ride, you've actually got you've got 2 hydraulic cylinders in the back here, and they alternate between them every time the ride goes round, and then the second one acts as the redundancy. So the restraint has got a redundancy built into it, and then we added a second redundancy after about the first year of operation when we added the seat belt on as well. And the reason we did that, if you're wondering, is because we are friends with Leesburg. They've got a ride called Helix. They retrofitted it to their coaster and they recommended it to us, and that's why we've got it here. So let's go and have a look underneath. If you will watch your head still, I know you've got hats on, but still watch your head when we go under. You can see what I mean about, I'm not going to touch that wheel now, but they've got full access to the wheel assembly. And you would be able to tell if you went on the ride that this is polyurethane, which is normal for a coaster wheel. If you had a split in it, sometimes if you ride the big one and think, well that was a bit rough, it might be because there's an imperfection in the wheel on it, and that's why we do those wheel checks on that ride each day. The other cool thing you can see on here, these, which from one end you can see the blue and red, these are the magnets for the ride, because it uses an LSM system for launching. So the white stators, which are on the straight pieces of the track, if I run an electrical charge through them, it creates a magnetic field. You know when you try and push 2 magnets together and they're pushing apart, this is the track is effectively pushing the train away, which is what gets it from 0 to 50 in 2 seconds. So yeah, it's a very cool system, and there's no touch between the magnets. Maelstrom.
Yeah.
That red thing in the corner allows us to set the wheel assembly up without having the track there on a car, but also allows us to get, there's a big set of doors there, so if you imagine trying to take a car in and out, because we're in a big pit surrounded by rides. We have a crane outside the Big Dipper. Those doors open, they can lift it out on those, and that's how you get the train.
Okay, so welcome to the far side revolution. So before we go up, is there anybody who is not good with heights at all? Because we are about to go up 50
I'm
feet.
doing it.
Do it. You'll enjoy it. It's good to conquer your fear.
Yeah.
So is everyone okay with heights?
Well,
Okay.
well, to the point.
If you don't like it, we'll bring you back down. All right. So if you want to follow me, if you just watch your step here.
I don't go.
Just make sure you watch out for the train.
Here, there's a button on it. So when that button's pressed in there, the operators up there will know if there's somebody coming up. So there's a little light on the console box, and when that's pressed in, a light will go off. So obviously then people will know there's someone coming up. That's good in case of because occasionally we will have a guest come up here thinking it's the entrance to the ride, and that's happened quite a lot more than you think. So it's good to know, it's good to have that light so that we prepare ourselves for if that happens. It's also good as well because we know that if the operator's coming up, then that light will go off as well. Okay, so obviously this is the Revolution, obviously operated since 1979. It's one of two of the Arrow shuttle launch coasters left in the world. So there's this, and then there's Diamondback, which is at Frontier City in Oklahoma. So it's nice to kind of preserve this, as this is now becoming a piece of history and could potentially one day be the only one operating in the world. So it's very nice to have that. If you remember from your talk with Andy before, does anyone remember when this ride? Who manufactured this ride, sorry?
Arrow.
Yeah, obviously this is one of the 3 Arrow coasters we've got here. Obviously being this big one and Steeplechase, obviously this coming second. So as you notice here, you'll notice this cable, which obviously is the main focal point of this ride, which obviously drives the trolley forward to obviously release the train and launch the train out. As you can see, that gigantic motor over there is what controls this cable as it comes out. You'll notice a huge difference with it, obviously comparing it to Icon, which is the more modern LSM launch that uses magnets and stuff. This is as simple as a motor pulling a rope and then it launches it out.
Is it just doing it on its own then?
So obviously when it's released, obviously the motor there, obviously that starts spinning, and obviously it pulls it. So it's literally like you're just pulling a piece, you know, like you've got it around the cog, and you're just pulling it, and it kind of winds it towards you and winds it back. It's as simple as that, really. Dipper, Fusion, big one. You can see that great plethora of rides that we have here. Yeah, if you feel free to kind of have a walk around this platform as well, taking it as much as you can, take as many pictures as you like. see. And when the sun starts to set as well, if you're lucky enough to be up here, like we are when we operate it, it's a nice place to sit. Because up here it can get a bit, you know, fatiguing because you are repeating the same thing when the train comes over and sending it back and things. So it is nice to see what's going on around the park to reduce that fatigue and boredom that you potentially get. An interesting fact about the operations up here, we only ever spend about an hour up here to kind of reduce the fatigue and things, so we always swap around every hour.
Yeah, you've got to, want it, just because obviously the nature of it as well. Most rides is every half hour, but because you don't want to do that half an hour up down, it's about time you get up here anyway, it's about time to swap again, so.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It's fine, we'll head back this way guys and we'll meet up with the other group once they come back out.